Hey y'all, I'm Tess Holliday, and welcome to my slumber party. Each week, I'm going to introduce you to folks who are making the world a better place. So put on your pajamas, grab a snack, and let's change the world from our bedroom. Hey y'all, welcome to my slumber party. Thanks for being here. And remember to follow, rate, and review on Apple Podcasts and like and subscribe on YouTube. I am so happy to have you guys hanging out with me today. And I would like to introduce my guest who's I'm going to scream. I'm going to try not to scream. Actor, director, and New York Times bestselling author, Laura Prepon. Hi, Laura.
Hi, Tess. Thanks for having me on your show. I'm very happy to be here.
Thanks for being here.
And I'm so jealous of your hair.
Listen,
look at that red hair.
You were an iconic redhead for literally forever. I mean, you were one of my first redhead crushes. And
I'm a traitor to our kind. I'm so sorry because I miss it. And my husband just, he can't wait for me to go back to red because that's my natural color.
Is it really?
Yes. I have dark hair because of Alex. And then for 7 years. And then, I'm trying to figure out how to maybe let my natural red grow out without looking like a crazy person. I don't know. I might completely strip my hair. I don't know. I'm figuring it out. But I do miss the red. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I have good hair people in New York. I'm sure you do too, because you're like but I'm actually shocked. Wait, was your hair like as Donna? Was that your because
so the early, toward the later seasons, I started adding a little bit. I wanted to go a little bit darker.
Yeah.
So my red got a little bit deeper toward season 6 or so. But yeah, the first 5 seasons, that was my hair. I mean, and there's also pictures on social media and stuff of my red hair as a kid. I have bright red hair as a kid.
God, I'm such a shitty fan, you guys. I had no idea. I feel like I'm literally.
No, but Tess, I've had this color hair for almost 10 years.
Yeah.
Because of Alex, so it's fine.
That's so
I like it. I actually like it.
I mean, honestly, listen, we're going to get into it, but I mean, you were a model first. So I feel like models usually can kind of pull off anything. So, with your bone structure, you could kill anything. But yeah.
Thanks. I'll take that as a compliment because I've tried other things with my hair and it hasn't been that great. But yes, I did start out as a model for better or worse. I mean, it's not easy.
No.
It is not easy, as you know. It's not an easy job to do. I mean, every industry has its pluses and minuses, but I feel like people have a false idea of what modeling actually is. It's tough. It's a grind and it is hard.
It is. There's parts of me that miss kind of being a traditional model before I morphed into just trying to do it all. And, or just following my greater purpose. Cause I really do feel like being a model was just kind of a vehicle to get me to my advocacy, which is what I really care about.
Totally. Yeah.
But I miss kind of that grind, like you said, of being on set and doing all of that. But I do not miss the way that I was constantly put under a microscope with my body and my image and all of that. I do not miss that at all.
Yeah, I totally get it. I mean, my relationship with modeling was a little different insofar as I really kind of fell into it. Being from a small town in Jersey, there wasn't a lot of modeling stuff going on. And my sister happened to work at Glamour in New York, and she was like, "You should think about modeling." And I ended up, after they first told me I had to lose 25 pounds,
Wow.
I ended up actually being sent to Italy when I was 15. I dropped out of school and I moved to Italy. So most of my modeling was in Europe. I lived in Milan for a year, and I would travel to London and, do little stints here and there. And then I ended up doing an Italian Uncle Ben's rice commercial, and that's how I started acting.
Wait, really?
Yes, I booked them because, as a model, as you have, you have the agents that send you on hair ads and makeup, things like that. I never booked any of them. I never booked any of them. And I didn't actually work much as a model. I used this time in Europe to just get boots on the ground experience by myself. I lived by myself in an apartment with lots of roaches. It was So I would call my mom in the middle of the night and be like, Mommy, I don't know what to do. She's like, turn on, when you go to the bathroom, look away, flip the lights on, they'll scatter. They don't like the light. But what's funny is most of my modeling was in Europe. And then I got this, my agent got me this commercial for Uncle Ben's. And I ended up booking it. And then I called my mom and was like, this acting thing, I had never even crossed my mind to be an actor or a model. Like I literally was going to be a doctor, like my dad. And I ended up booking it and it was great. And I would call my mom, like, I want to try this acting thing. So within a few days, I was back home and she was like, what do we need to do? I'm like, I need to learn how to act. So we literally opened up a Yellow Pages and she pointed to a teacher and I took classes. And within a year, I booked that 70s show.
Wow.
It was crazy. It's crazy. But so my modeling experience was a little bit different in that I really didn't model that much. But I was going to all the castings and I was with all the other models and I was doing that life. And it was, you know, I didn't do any of the partying stuff. Like I never got into that. I was always alone. But it was, but people have this kind of false idea that it's super glamorous. It's really not. It's just not. Unless you're a top model, you know?
I mean, I'm not, I mean, I have so much I want to say about all of this, but I will say that my life is definitely more glamorous now than it was when I first started. But I mean, I definitely, growing up in rural Mississippi, I had no idea about any of this. So for me, literally just having like bottles of water at my shoot felt glamorous to me because
totally.
Or like bags of Doritos. I was like, these are free. And then like I still to this day, if there's craft services and there's like stuff left over, I will take like snacks and whatever. Like I still am I can't believe this is free.
I get it. I totally get it.
So I think my idea of glamour is probably different, but I think that's so interesting. And I also, I mean, it must have been really wonderful having a supportive parent to like foster that, because a lot of parents, you know, I feel like would kind of think, at least for me, my family was supportive, but they were like, you're a little crazy, but they would never tell me that. They just supported me regardless. So yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing to have that. Yeah, I mean, I had a very unconventional upbringing.
Yeah.
So my mother, in her own right, walked to the beat of her own drum, never conformed to the status quo.
I love that.
She had her own very complicated upbringing. So my relationship with her is very complicated.
Yeah.
But I will say I wouldn't be where I am without her letting me, the influence that she had on me, as well as her being so kind of freewheeling and knowing that I could do it. Like I do think that's also a parent thing. Like you have 2 kids, you know, so it's like, and so do I.
Yeah.
It's kind of like at least I hope that she knew I'd be okay.
For sure.
You know what I mean? Like she just knew that I'd be okay. And so she was like, go, you know?
I love
She dropped me off at the airport.
She was like, literally go.
Yeah, exactly. But I was always kind of on my own. I was never like the baby. I was always like hustling.
Well, speaking of hustling, because, you know, I feel like obviously everyone knows who Laura is, but for those of you listening and watching, I'm going to kind of just jump into it. So obviously we know Laura from, you know, playing Alex in Orange is the New Black, which is iconic. Donna in that 70s show, also iconic. And you've done so much more than act. Like we just talked about you starting out as a model. I found this out because that when you were living abroad as a model, you got your GED, right? Because you dropped out of school. And then you started studying directing at night while you were doing that 70s show. And like, then you started directing. You directed multiple episodes of Orange is the New Black, web series, short films, and more, on top of writing 2 books and your new kitchen line, Prepon Kitchen, which is the cutest name ever, that just launched on HSN. So I mean, when do you sleep, I guess is what I was going to ask.
I don't know. I mean, when do you sleep? I mean, you know what I mean? Like we just kind of figure it out. But I don't know. I mean, you know, when I Yes, when I was on 70 show, I didn't finish high school because I moved to Italy when I was
Yeah.
15. So as I said, so when I wanted to be a director, I knew very quickly after watching this guy named David Trainer directed 199 episodes of the 200 episodes of that 70 show.
Wow.
He was an amazing influence on us. He was an incredible director. And I knew very early on that I wanted to direct. So, while I was on my 70s show, I found a friend of mine, his father taught at a local film school, which was pretty highly regarded.
Wow.
And I was like, I need to meet with your dad. And I met with him and I was like, look, I have a full-time job, but I want to be a director. And after I literally wouldn't leave him alone, he finally was like, fine. And he put me through his curriculum. So
Wow.
he would put his college kids through the curriculum during the day. And then after I would finish 70 show, he would put me through the curriculum after he finished teaching his college kids. And then he ended up producing my first short film. He's no longer with us, but he was awesome.
Wow.
And then I was just like, I wanted to keep kind of sharpening my blade and I wanted to keep staying really sharp as a director and getting better. So then I created this show with a couple friends of mine called Neighbros, which was I was a one-woman crew. We would write it. I would pack all my film gear in my car and we would just film this little comedic web series and I would edit them.
Wow.
And I taught myself how to edit. So I would edit them, which I have to say is one of the best things that I ever did for myself was learning how to edit and directing this web series. Because I got to tell you, when I was directing Orange, there were crew guys. I always loved hanging out with all the teamsters and stuff. Like I just loved the crew. They were just awesome. And, crew would come up to me and be like, oh my gosh, we saw Neighbors. Like, what was easier, Orange or Neighbors? I'm like, honestly, Orange. Because on Neighbors, I was doing everything but myself. And on Orange, I'm like, at least we have like a team of people to get the vision on the screen, which is really funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, then I just kept on going. Like I just didn't really, I was just like, I don't know, Tess, the way to describe it is I was just really like just passionate for this craft. I just loved it. Cooking, entertaining, directing, acting, editing. I just loved all of it. And you just kind of, if you love something enough, you just find the time, right? You just figure it out.
You do.
Hook, line, or sinker. You just, you do it. You just do it. Not a lot of sleep. So I drink a ton of coffee to try to keep going. And hopefully, everything turns out okay.
It does turn out okay. I think anytime that you're trusting your gut and your intuition and following your purpose and doing what feels right. I think sometimes people in my life are like, yeah, Tess, you always say it. But I always just say things work out. They're going to work out one way or the other. It doesn't mean maybe it's like good or bad either way, but things just always have a way of working out. And so, I definitely try to like stress less. That doesn't always happen. I do drink a lot of coffee like you.
I love it though. I love coffee.
I do too. Wow. I've learned so much about you literally in the last week than I knew before. And it's just made my admiration for you grow, even though you're not a redhead now, but I know that you are like deep down inside. And that makes me, I'm have your color hair naturally, like a darker color. So this is all fake.
Oh, wow. Okay. So we're literally like
we're the opposites. This is what I love about slumber parties. And this is part of why I did the kind of slumber party thing for my podcast is because this is what they are. Like things never, go as planned, which is fine because I'm a mom, you're a mom. Things never go as planned. But I love that we just dove right into it.
Yeah, having two kids, being a working mom, it's a lot to juggle. And we both have a lot that we're figuring out right now.
We get it done though. We figure it out.
You get it done. Yes, you do.
We do.
Fair enough. You figure it out and you get it done.
So for today, we're going to talk about how prep can make your life easier in so many ways. And I am going to pick your brain on this because I have heard, through the grapevine that you are always prepared and you're on it. And that is something that I am definitely struggling with juggling, like being a mom and, working in the industry and like trying to have a family and do all of that. So, and we're also going to talk about why sharing our own stories and having boundaries within our own personal life is really important. So for those of you watching on YouTube, you guys know that I always do like a pajama part of my podcast, and I am wearing this kind of like ridiculous, like vintage looking blue set that like ties at the top. And when I was,
awesome.
Thank you. It felt very 70s. So I was like kind of channeling that.
I might have actually worn something like that.
Laura, what are you wearing for everybody listening?
Well, I'm wearing a t-shirt and sweatpants because that's what I go to sleep in.
Love it.
So of course I'm wearing a black t-shirt. I'm wearing a black t-shirt and black, I guess they're like tie-dye-ish.
Yeah.
And I'm about to put my sweater on because I feel like it.
She's getting cozy.
I'm getting cozy.
Then we do a snack segment, a snack and drink. And guess what, guys? This has been such a wild week for me emotionally that I completely forgot our drink. But I want Laura to share what our drink was going to be, because this is when I knew that I really loved you.
No, but here's the thing. Did you think I was going to bring an Aperol Spritz?
Yes.
Oh, those are so good.
How do you make your Aperol Spritzes? Because I feel like you've probably perfected it. It's my favorite drink.
No, it's so easy though. That's what I love about this drink. But today I didn't bring an Aperol Spritz. This is just club soda with some tequila and a lime.
I love it.
So this is what's happening today. But normally with the Aperol, I do Prosecco. And I support my local businesses, and we have a great wine shop around us that has a bunch of organic stuff. So I get this really great organic Prosecco that he has.
Wow.
And then I top it with Aperol, then club soda, a lime twist, an orange twist. And then I stick it in, you get a little tiny bit of the orange juice, and I put the slice inside with ice.
I'm going to make one when I get home, because I had all of the ingredients for it, except for, I don't think that, what did you say you add? Did you say you add the orange slice? And then what did you say after?
Well, it's Prosecco.
Yes.
Aperol, club soda, and an orange slice. And then I'll squeeze a little bit of the orange in.
You guys. So I discovered Aperol Spritzes because I used to, before the pandemic, I was in London a lot working. And it's a very like London, like everyone is on like a London rooftop drinking Aperol Spritzes, and I wanted to fit in.
Yes.
But it's such a fun, easy drink. So I love that that's your drink. And after this,
I started drinking them in Italy because they're very, but you're right, they're very European, and they're so, I just love them. I love it. And I love Europe. So, anything that makes me feel like I'm back there.
Listen,
minus the cockroaches.
minus the Italian cockroaches. I'm gonna cross my fingers that one day I get to drink an Aperol Spritz with you in real life. So that's
yes, that would be awesome. You're gonna have to come to New York though, because I don't know when I'm gonna be back out in California.
I will come to you. Don't worry. We each week on the podcast, I kind of discuss my week and what it's been like. And for this one, this was probably the most intense emotional week that I have had in a very long time. Mostly because I talked about and for those listening, I'm about to talk about my eating disorder. So just kind of a warning. I shared publicly that I was diagnosed anorexia type A, and I decided to share it with the public. And, obviously I'm not going to get into it too much, but Laura, I know that you discussed a little bit about this in your book, and I just want to say how much I appreciate the fact that there are folks like you that listen. We're in the public eye, and I feel like a lot of people just think that we have to share everything, and they don't understand that what we share is a choice, and you didn't have to share that. And I know that eating disorders are so stigmatized, and there's so much that people don't talk about. So I do want to say thank you for sharing that, and also how do you manage these boundaries in your life with what you choose to share and when you share it, and kind of like when that's out there, how you kind of protect yourself a bit?
Yeah, well, first of all, I just want to say that it's really brave to do what you did this week. And, as someone who, yes, I did, write about some dysfunctional relationships I've had with food in the past in my second book. And I know what that's like. And it is very vulnerable. It's a very vulnerable place to be. But so thank you for sharing your story, because I know it's not easy. But when I, first talked about it, I actually had talked about it in regards to my mother, because I was, when people find out I was a model, a lot of people are like, oh, it must have been the modeling. But what's funny is my dysfunctional relationship with food started long before I was modeling. It was actually something that was kind of taught to me in my family. But, again, I have a very complicated relationship with my mother. I'll say again, I wouldn't be where I am without her, and I'm very inspired by her. But she was also, there were some things that were not so good, as with, I mean, everybody I feel like has a complicated relationship with their parents. But yeah, but when in my second book, You and I as Mothers, I really wanted to have an open dialogue about what it's like being a new mother, because I felt like it wasn't talked about. I felt like how difficult it is, the anxiety that we struggle with, the different things that go on with being a new mother. I felt like there were so many things that weren't talked about. And I wanted to have that conversation. So that was my impetus for writing the book. And a big part of that book was this chapter called How You Were Mothered, where it's funny, I never actually looked at my relationship with my mother until I myself became a mother. And then it was like in my face, because when you're in those early stages of anxiety and not knowing what to do and trying to take care of this little baby, and you're like, what am I doing? Why is it like this? Why does it feel like this? You kind of go back into this default mode of how you were mothered.
Mm-hmm.
And I really, for the first time, was looking at that. And I started seeing a lot of things that were not okay. And again, I'm not a blaming person. I'm not one to be like, you did this to me. I don't. I just can't. It's not part of who I am. So, but it is interesting to have to look at it and have to actually deal with it.
Yeah.
But, at that time, I really felt like I needed to write about my relationship with her. And a big part of our relationship was this dysfunctional relationship with food.
Mm.
So that's why it came up, and I made a decision that I felt I wanted to share about it. And you know what, Tess, for me, it was like, if writing about my experience and my dysfunctional struggle with food, if that's going to help one person feel less alone who might be dealing with the same issues that I was, it was worth it. You know what I mean? And that's kind of where I came at it, where I'm like, if this makes people feel less alone, then it's worth all of it,
Well, thank you for.
And it did, and people commented, and people responded with that story, and but I was a little concerned that it would become like it wouldn't just be a thing that I was sharing because I felt I wanted to share that.
Yeah.
It's a complicated situation, but how are you doing today with it? With having talked about it in the media and stuff.
Well, thanks for asking, but I mean, I'm doing okay. It's definitely difficult to, my entire career, all of my accomplishments and successes have always been kind of diminished in the media or any interview or anything I do. They'll talk about my success. They'll say, you're the first person to do this, or you're doing this, or let's talk about this project, but also, are you healthy? Right. And so it's always been followed by that for the past 10 years. And so I'm used to combating that question and telling people, health isn't a moral mandate. You can't look at someone and tell whether or not they're healthy and all of these things, right? So I have been talking about my perceived health for over a decade publicly, but I didn't realize that I had an eating disorder. And so realizing that I have an eating disorder and then this is what I've been doing, they're very intertwined. And I also do believe that, my eating disorder started very young in life. But the one that I overate and then it developed into anorexia. And I really do think that it is part of, I'm not blaming social media, but I do think that social media did play a role into that because I had people shouting at me constantly, like, all you do is sit around and eat all day, and I was starving. So that was really hard to kind of make peace with. And I want to say, when you were sharing your story, all I kept thinking about was, when you're a mom and you're a new mom, you don't know what the hell you're doing. And all of this stuff comes up, right? And I don't have a perfect relationship with my mom. Some of my disordered eating definitely stemmed from my mom and like my family kind of putting these ideas into my head. And so I feel very grateful to be a mom. And as I know you do the same with your kids. And I'm assuming, but I feel like I'm right, that you now can parent them and foster like safe relationships with them and food and kind of like educate them a bit on like, the importance of feeding your body, nourishing your body, and not making it about, not making them feel bad, taking like shame and stuff out of it. So I think it's really powerful that we had to go through all of that, but we're able to kind of, I don't want to say redo, but make sure that, our kids don't have to feel that way, feel the way that we felt about it.
Right. I mean, no, you're right. Insofar as like we get to choose, right?
Yeah.
We get to choose what we bring with us and what we don't.
Mm.
And that's a really empowering place to be, I feel,
Yeah.
for myself as a
Yeah.
parent, where I can choose what good I want to, pass along, and what I want to leave behind. And so I will. And that's a really empowering place for me to be. And, I am really, I mean, the way that that chapter, especially the how you were mothered chapter in that book, resonated with so many people. So many people. I mean, I'm very fortunate. Like people love that book, which was so amazing because you write a book and you get it out there and you're just like, I don't know what people are going to think.
You don't.
And it really resonated with people and it meant so much to me. And that chapter specifically, I feel like resonated with a bunch of people. And I was really vulnerable. I normally don't share that much. Like I share a lot, but not, usually not about that. But a lot of people felt seen and heard and felt like they weren't alone in that experience. So,
yeah,
I just want to teach any kind of healthy viewpoint around food to my kids.
Yeah.
Who've gone through that.
Well, I appreciate you immensely sharing all of that. And, it's funny, we're talking about this and then we're going to jump into playing a game before I ask you a few more questions. But so we're going to jump from something very heavy into lighthearted, which is, that's what slumber parties are, right?
There's got to be balance.
There is.
You need where, there might have been some darkness or else.
Absolutely. But you said something I always say, and I'll kind of like wrap it up by this, that, if you can share your story and make someone else feel less alone, and I say that all the time, then that's what really matters. And so I appreciate you, and I appreciate you sharing what you choose to share with others and knowing that it will help them feel less alone, because it really does. Well, I'm sending you a virtual hug, and we are going to play Two Truths and a Lie. So how do you feel?
Two truths and a lie. Okay, so how does this work?
Okay, so
just like say the truth and then I lie.
So basically, how it works is you're going to give me 3 things, statements, or stories. 2 are true and 1 that's a lie, and I have to guess which one is the lie.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you that right now.
If you feel prepared to, you can just I can do one if you want.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
I can make one up. Okay. So, and you can think about yours if you want. So, two truths and a lie. Okay. I went to high school in an abandoned Walmart building. I had a pet snake when I was a kid, and I have a scar on one of my fingers from getting bit by my pet rat.
I think that the pet, not that I think you went to school, but I don't know. My gut instinct is saying the pet rat thing is a lie.
The pet rat is not a lie. The pet snake was a lie. Yeah. I actually
not that you went to school in an abandoned Walmart building. I was like, nah, the rat has got to be. Maybe there's two lies in here.
But you knew I was from rural Mississippi, so I feel like you put two and two together, and you were like, she definitely went to high school in
I don't know. Look, I've never been there. Maybe it's a lovely place. I have no idea.
It's okay.
But we're all, nowadays we're having school in a bunch of crazy places. You know what I mean?
We are. Wait, I didn't even think about that. You're right. We're having to just make do. No, I don't
know. It's been weirder. So yeah.
It has been weirder. No, I have a scar on my finger right here, which no one can see watching, obviously, but it's tiny.
Oh
but
my goodness.
I had a pet rat and it sunk its little teeth into my fingers, and now I have a permanent rat tooth. It's like a circle mark on my finger.
Oh, that's awful. I mean, I've been bitten before, but I basically just have like scars on my arm from like over the years of cooking, just thinking that my hand doesn't feel heat and just reaching into an oven, and then I have like mostly cooking scars. So at least you have a cool story around yours.
I do.
So here are mine. Okay, ready?
I'm ready.
I had a Rhodesia Ridgeback named Lambert. I have 7 siblings. I summited Mount Kilimanjaro, which is the highest peak in Africa.
Oh my God. Those are all very mind-blowing. I'm gonna say, I feel like you could do all. I'm gonna say 2. Is 2 a lie? Do you have 7 siblings?
Yes. I do not.
Was I right?
I do have 4.
Yay!
I do have 4. I felt like I had to go bigger. So you're like, you know what? That's that's kind of extreme. It has to be true.
Not Mount Kilimanjaro, the 7 siblings.
Oh my God.
That's funny. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, well, what haven't you done? That's
well, no, but that's why I went with like the rat biting your finger. I'm like, there's no way a rat bit her finger because they're quick. I don't know if you ever had like an encounter with a wild one.
Yes.
They're quick.
They are quick. Well, I appreciate you being a good sport. And also, I was going to start off the interview by talking about modeling, but we already did that. So we are just going to, I'm just going to jump into really when you got the call from Orange is the New Black, Netflix wasn't even really a thing. They had House of Cards, but nothing really else. And I want to know, and I'm sure you've answered this before, but I don't know this, and this is me being a fangirl, what made you take the role? Because, no one like Netflix was around, but it wasn't the machine that it is now.
Yeah, no, we had no idea. At that time, House of Cards hadn't even aired yet. And nobody knew what Netflix was at that time. For me, I've always tried to be material based. Like if I read it and I really respond to it, that's a huge indication for me. So I got the pilot for Orange, and Jenji Kohan is just such an amazing writer. It just stood out. It totally stood out. I was just like, I don't know what this Netflix thing is, but Alex Voss, I have to play her. I just have to play her. Like there was just something in me that I knew I had to play her, and I ended up getting it. And it was just this magical experience. You could never, I've been fortunate enough to be in my industry for over 20 years now. And you can't ever expect for something like an Orange to take off the way that it does. It's like and it changed the game on so many levels and broke so many barriers and was just so wonderful. But yeah, it was, but right when I read it, I just knew I had to be a part of it.
Yeah.
And that gut instinct, I just had to go with.
Well, and I talked about that a bit earlier, right? That you're never going to go wrong when you're trusting your gut and your intuition. And, as someone that identifies as queer, I seeing you portray that role was really powerful, and you killed it. And I want to know, like, to you, like, what mattered the most to you about playing Alex? Because, you know, I know that oftentimes folks that don't identify as queer, right, playing queer roles, like sometimes people get upset or whatever. But in this case with Orange, I feel like you guys were just welcomed really by the community, because I felt like, and I'm not speaking collectively for the LGBT community at all, but me personally, people felt seen, and it felt like you guys did it right, and you could really tell that, you really cared,
Thank you. Yeah, look, the show broke so many boundaries across the board. I mean, it really was a phenomenal thing to be a part of.
Yeah.
And, when I first took on Alex, she was just such a phenomenal character, that the fact that, the funny thing is that it didn't even really, it wasn't an issue.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, the fact that, she had this incredible relationship with Piper, and it's funny now that you're asking, like, I honestly, it was who she is.
Yeah.
And I know I needed to play her, and I just, I embraced everything. It's funny, I didn't even really think about it. It wasn't even an option. It wasn't a choice. It wasn't like, I just went for it because she's just such a beautiful character.
Yeah.
I didn't really think about it, truthfully.
You were like, I just knew. And I love that.
Yeah. And it's funny, like, Taylor and I you see our relationship on camera was just, it meant so much to me that people felt represented and felt like, at that time too, like, keep in mind, when did we first go on the air? Like, now it was probably 9 years ago,
yes.
8 years ago, maybe
yes.
was when we first went on. And other than our show, there weren't a lot of the L Word, I think maybe was still on. I can't remember. It was so long ago. But the fact that people felt represented across the board with so many of our characters was huge.
Being able to see.
I miss Alex. I do. I miss her a lot.
I bet. I mean, listen, you played that role beautifully, and it was just, you were right. At that time when it came out, there wasn't a lot of queer representation like that on TV.
No.
And I truly believe that if it wasn't for Orange, we would not have half of the programming that we have now. And I'm friends with a lot of queer actors in the entertainment industry, and a lot of them now have really great opportunities that obviously they created for themselves, but Orange really busted the doors open. And even being able to see trans folks on TV, but being represented and being able to share their stories through these characters was so hugely impactful.
And that whole show is just, like, love is love is love is love is love.
Absolutely.
And it was just such a beautiful, beautiful thing to be part of.
I bet.
I loved it. I did. I loved it.
It's such a joy. It's amazing to be able to do what you love, and be able to look back on it fondly. And speaking of doing what you love, I want to talk about your kitchen line, because this is something that you're also really passionate about. I love your YouTube channel. It's so cute. You even did like a cute little.
Thank you.
I saw your you did a reel today when I opened Instagram. You were the first person I saw doing like a cute little reel with all of your. So I want to know what made you do this? Like, what made you kind of start down this path? Because from what you just said, you have a ton of scars from cooking over the years. So this isn't something that just happened overnight.
Yeah, no, I mean, my mom was a huge influence to me, and she was a gourmet chef. So,
Wow.
as a youngster, I would watch her in the kitchen all the time. And, but, even though she would make these incredible, it's how she showed her love was like cooking for her family. And it's a huge way that how I show my love. I love cooking for and with my family. And it's just a part of who I am. I think it's because I grew up watching my mother in the kitchen. And to me, the kitchen is the heartbeat of the home. I just love it. And I love cooking. But I would, even as a youngster, she would prepare all this incredible food, but she would never be with us to enjoy it. She would never be with us to be present and be a family, and because she was always cooking. So even as a kid, I knew there had to be an easier way. And like, I see my kids grow. Like you see time in front of you. Like I see, now my daughter will sit in front of me and she's like, Mama, let's talk about it. And I'm like, let's talk about it. Where did you want me to say that? Like my son is walking now. Like it's just crazy. So for me, it's like, I want that time with my family. So when I prepare these, nourishing homemade meals, because that's a huge part of how I keep a healthy lifestyle, is I cook most of our own food. I try to support local restaurants and, we'll order in sometimes, but I cook a lot.
Yeah.
And, but I want to be able to be present with my family to enjoy it. And different kind of problems I would encounter in the kitchen over the years, I couldn't find solutions in the marketplace. And I just decided to make them. And those are what became my culinary line. Those are what became Prepon Kitchen. And I just launched, and the feedback's been great. And I mean, I love having this stuff because there are solutions to problems that I was facing. So now that I have them, I use them every day, all day. And I absolutely it's just so great to have an idea and concepts in your head, like on little scraps of, I'm a big Post-its person, like scraps of paper, Post-its everywhere. And then for that to turn into something we can use in the kitchen is just, it's amazing. It's really special.
I bet it is. And I also I love to cook, but I am horrible at prepping. And I always have the best of intentions and I just don't do it. And I was looking at your Prepon line because I'm going to buy it all. And I've your food lids, I want literally they're a game changer. And so I know for you,
awesome.
well, I'm hyped. And I know for you, you created it to make it easier for you. So what are a couple of the things maybe that you created that you found, because you said you did this because you couldn't find a solution to make it easier. So I guess maybe what are a couple that you have created that you're like, why wasn't this around before?
Yeah, there's a lot of them. I mean, I'll tell you a couple, but for years when I would prep all my food, I would end up with a cutting board just overflowing with shavings and food scraps. And, you'd have to break your flow and lug this board to the garbage or your compost or however your lifestyle is.
Yeah.
And I was just like, there's got to be a better way. So I would tuck a bag under my board. And in a bunch of my YouTube videos, you actually, over the years, you see the bag tucked under my board, scraping the food scraps. And then finally, I designed this integrated arm that comes out of a cutting board and holds my my compost biodegradable bags in place. And it's awesome. So that's the perfect example of something I designed because I didn't want to break my cooking flow. All of my pro chef friends are like, you always want to have a clean cutting board and you never want to break your cooking flow. So this solves both of those problems and it just makes cleanup super easy. That's one example. I mean, I could go on.
I know you.
I can literally every single one of them is a solution.
You were they were literally all needed. The cutting board is a life changer so I'm not going to keep you much longer. But what I want to ask is, I've heard you're a very prepared person, as we have established well in this podcast. So for you, how do you prep when you direct, act, or writing your next book?
Yeah, prep, honestly, like, yes, my culinary line is called Prepon Kitchen, but because I do feel that preparation is huge to being able
Mm,
to get food on the table or snacks or whatever. Like, if I don't prepare in advance, it is hard for me to do all those things.
yeah.
But preparation really does transcend across any area of my career. When I'm directing, preparation is everything. But it's interesting because I feel like preparation actually makes it so I can be more relaxed.
Mm,
Like some people might hear preparation and be like, oh, that feels a little rigid, but it's not. Like when I prepare, then I can actually relax and be in the moment. Like when I'm so prepared for work and I show up and there's a snowstorm and we lose a location or an actor's sick or there's something going on or whatever, because I'm so prepared, I'm like, great, let's move and do this. And I just blah, 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 blah. Like I know what we need to go to because I'm prepared.
yeah.
And in the morning when I'm trying to get my food together, I'm not totally scrambling because the night before I took 10 minutes to soak an oatmeal for an overnight oat, get my coffee all ready to go in the morning to just have add water, like prepare my lunch and keep it in the fridge, like everything like I do. And as a mom, it's harder to have these chunks of time. So I've gotten good at doing things in like slivers of time.
Mm,
So even in 10 minutes, I can get some pretty good stuff done because now it's like, we used to have time, to like wake up and enjoy our coffee and all. And now it's like everything's like moments. Like you just get a
yes.
moment. You know
Wow.
what I mean? Where you sit down, you have a couple sips of coffee, you hear mommy, and you're like, that was a good moment. I'm
Yeah.
gonna go get the kid. You know what I mean? So it's just really trying to enjoy the moment is how I'm kind of like, taking it day by day, especially during, my daughter's like schooling from home and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Like it's, having my son being so young during this whole time. It's just been like crazy.
Yeah.
So preparation helps a lot. And I really have tried to hone my skill of getting things done in 10-minute increments.
Well, listen, I believe that there's a reason why we connected the way when we did, because I'm just going to take this as a sign from the universe that I need to prep Bowie's lunch the day before because I did it one day this week and my morning was significantly easier. And I thought, why
Yeah,
don't I do this? And the next morning I did it and I was frazzled. But
right.
you said something that was really great. You said it's the moments, right? Enjoying like those moments. And it was so simply said, but that really resonates because you're right. There's so many, you can plan all you want, you can do all of this, but like being able to really sit and enjoy those moments, because I think if anything I've learned, especially with the pandemic, is everything was so fast paced before, and it's really allowed us to have time to slow down. And this time has helped me tremendously. But what it taught me was my kids grow up so fast. And I literally
Yeah.
sometimes pick up my little one from school and I'm like, did your face change in 8 hours?
Yeah,
But,
exactly.
and like just being able to enjoy that little time that you get, or even the time to yourself, whatever that looks like is important. Um, I I have two questions for you before we wrap this slumber party up. And one
Great.
was, you and I are both working moms in the industry. And I know we've talked about this a bit, but how do you protect your family time? Do you have like no phone days or evenings? I know you're literally doing 9,000 times. How do you make sure that, you prioritize what's most important to you?
Yeah, I mean, it's not easy, especially, like my daughter's schooling from home. I have a 1-year-old, but my husband and I really we try our best not to be. If there's a work thing where we have to be on our phones, then in front of our kids, we do. But we really, if there's something we need to do on our phones, we leave the room. And
Oh, wow.
we'll just tell each other like, I gotta go handle a work thing, and we know what that means because we don't always want our. And look, here's the thing, Tess. Like, we're all just trying to do the best we can. So this
Yeah,
is like no judgment. You know what I mean, on
absolutely.
anybody, because it's like friends of mine will talk to me and be like, "How do you not show your kids on social media?" Like, and I'm like, that's a family decision. We don't
Mhm.
show their faces on social media. it's a tough negotiation because of what we do, because of having a social platform. I love having my social platform. I love the engagement and the direct communication that and connection that I have with my online community. It's really special to me. But you also, you have to protect. I mean, anybody with a smartphone now, there's a constant negotiation between what's personal and what's public.
Absolutely.
Like what's private, what's public.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has that negotiation now, no matter what your industry is.
Yeah.
We're all negotiating that. And for us as a family, that's what's comfortable for us. But you just try to figure it out.
Yeah.
You just try to figure it out,
You do. I also wonder kind of like our generations and the kids that are growing up now, like what it'll be like for them that have kind of been on social media forever, like what that looks like. So I think it's,
I don't know.
Yeah.
Like it's crazy. I love doing, like if a teacher who's teaching at a college or whatever, I'm asked to go speak to graduating classes about how to stay relevant and things like that.
Yeah.
I've literally been asked to do this. And the last one I went on was right before the pandemic happened. And I was super, super pregnant. But I was asked to speak at this wonderful performing arts school to the senior class about staying relevant in the industry. I'm talking to this class and they're asking me questions and stuff. And then at the end was this one-on-one Q&A where they could just come up and ask me different questions. I cannot tell you how many were about social media.
Wow.
And this was this very well-known, wonderful performing arts school. And these incredible artists are asking me about social media. And while I get it, there is absolutely a place for social media. And again, I'm so thankful to have the online platform that I have. And I take it very seriously and it really is special to me. But being in this school and talking to this class and how most of the questions were about how to use social media and that it was very confusing to them and they would post something and, one performance didn't get enough likes as the other one. Or, a couple of girls asked me like how much they need to show. I was so bummed because I wanted so badly to help them and I didn't know what to say. Because when I came up, I got my first big break in 1998.
Yeah, you did.
I don't know I don't know what you do to get a break now. And I think that people rely so heavily on social media. And it's a confusing conversation because I don't know. I know how important it is to have a platform, but the instant judging yourself based on other people's viewpoints of you, it's tough. It's tough. And when I saw these kids struggling so much, and most of the questions were about social media, I didn't know what to say. I'm just try to, what I did say was try to figure out what message you want to get out there.
Yeah.
In terms of your art and what you want to put out in the world. And then, push that idea.
For sure.
You know what I mean? Like that's something that we did talk about that they felt they could kind of grasp concept around because social media can be very confusing, especially for kids.
Very confusing. And it's also a lot of unnecessary pressure that we're putting kind of like on our children. And I grew up on like MySpace and social media. So I've kind of always been on social media. So, and I do often say that I probably would not have the career that I had if it wasn't for social media because I didn't have access to certain spaces. But with that being said, there's a reason.
That's a perfect example. Exactly. Yes. That is very important.
Yeah. But there's a reason why my 15-year-old is not allowed to have social media. And I think he definitely wants it, but I just don't think that he's like emotionally ready or mature enough for social media. And so, I think maybe in a year or so, or maybe when he's like 16, 17, and maybe he decides, but for now, I do feel grateful that my child literally, it's already so hard enough to be a kid. Like, I don't want to make it, it's like, just imagine adding social media into it. So yeah, I love that. And it's
an interesting negotiation across the board, no matter where you're at in your life. It's But that was definitely an eye opener for me.
I
Seeing
bet.
that, I was like, whoa. But yeah, we're all trying to figure it out.
We are.
And it's tricky. It is tricky. It's
It is.
new for all of us.
Yeah.
Like I remember on 70s, you know, when Kutcher was like tweeting and we're like, what is that Twitter thing? You know what I mean? Like, we didn't know. Like, do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And now you look at like how far it's come. You're just like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Like, so it's mind blowing. It's actually mind blowing when you sit and like look at it.
It is. Well, I want to ask you one last question before we go. And that is, Laura, how did you show your self-love today?
Oh, that's a good question. I made myself a second cup of coffee.
Yes.
I was like, you know what? I'm making my little special latte that I like. So I did that. So that was my self-care today.
Well, I want to thank you so much for being my guest today. I have these moments where I get to like pinch myself, and this was definitely one of those moments, and I admire you a lot, and I appreciate sharing this time with you.
I appreciate it.
So listen, it feels kind of silly asking you this because I ask all of my guests this, but I can't even say it without laughing. Where can my followers find you on social media?
Okay, it's fine. Well, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, so at Laura Prepon is my handle. I don't even know the handle.
Yes,
across
that's right.
And yeah, exactly. Great. Look at us. We're figuring it out. But yeah, it's at Laura Prepon is all my stuff. And then I also have at Prepon Kitchen.
And then where can everybody buy your amazing kitchen gear?
Thank you. Yeah, you can go to hsn.com and search Prepon Kitchen, or you can always just go to preponkitchen.com and it's all right there.
All right. Well, listen, after this, I'm going to go buy all the kitchen stuff, and I will report back to you on how much organized my life is in the next week.
Yeah. Well, it's made to make your life easier in the kitchen, so I really hope that it does for you.
It will. I know it. I know it will. Thank you again. And thank you to everybody at home and at your own slumber party for tuning in. And remember, if you were listening to this episode, you can also check us out on YouTube. Or if you were watching this episode, you can also listen to us anywhere you listen to podcasts. Don't forget to follow, rate, and review on Apple Podcasts, and like and subscribe on YouTube. Thanks, y'all.
Thanks for having me.
Yay.